Hello. So here I am again with yet another interesting story. So I've got all these sacred tree essences, right? And a few of them have been calling my name, but one of them is called Uchu Sanango, which obviously is calling my name because I did a lot of Sharik Sanango in the past, and they're sort of related, I guess. They're not related chemically, but, you know, there's culturally, I guess, you know, just like they're both called Sanango, and there's Sanangeros, there's specialists in both medicines, sometimes both of them. And the Sharik Sanango had a big effect on my life, you know. So, Ucho, I was... well, my feeling was that Sharik has more of a reputation, I think, right? It's got more of a reputation as being the stronger one or whatever. And it's maybe got, yeah, I at least as far as I knew. But I'm on day 3 now of Ucho, and yesterday was just one of the most amazing days of my life. It was just amazing. So the first day I took 3 drops, and I sort of felt it in my system. It reminded me a bit of Uña de Gato. It didn't really feel like much. And I actually was thinking it was going to be underwhelming. I thought the experience would be kind of like whatever, you know. Now in the Sacred Tree website, the sacredtreeessences.com website, Mimi the shaman says that, you know, it creates like a steel armor, and some of the reviews said a whole bunch of stuff about making you more honest and this kind of stuff. So it sounded quite interesting, because for me, Sharik Sanango, the other Sanango, was it was magical. It had a sort of magical vibe to it, and it was, I would describe it as sort of purpley magic. Then later on it got quite dark, and my sense was that it had a sort of witchy vibe to it later on. That was when when my behaviors were negative. So like I was breaking the diet, drinking beer, eating sausages and hot sauce, like just so beyond stupid. It's unbelievable. But it got like a very negative vibe to it, and dark magical vibe to it, which was unpleasant. So I was also I had a little trepidation, you know, taking another Sanango, you know, who knows what'll happen, said I, you know. But it was absolutely amazing experience. So yesterday I took 4 drops, and the first day, the 3 drops, you know, it was kind of, I didn't really feel much, you know. I could feel it in my system, but it didn't really go anywhere. So yesterday I took 4 drops. And I had a few people sending me emails, and I found in my emails I was giving what I thought was sort of thoughtful, sensitive advice. And I was like, oh, that must be the Uchu Sanango working, you know. And at one point in my Facebook page, I've got my, on my personal Facebook page, I've got a big sort of, what's that called, background image at the top, at the header image. And it's like of a bunch of, it's like an ayahuasca art image of like 3 wolves and a fox and a woman's faces. It's beautiful. Beautiful picture. And for some reason I went to look at it, and I was looking at it, and what is all the foxes and wolves, they've all got their heads like, you know when you see people sleeping, or dogs sleeping, they're like, they get their heads up like this and they're sleeping, and they look so comfortable and peaceful and at peace, knowing that nothing bad is going to happen to them. They're protected. So, at the same time, I was listening to some electronic music, which I really like. There's a great channel on YouTube called The Grand Sound, which is like progressive house music, which it sort of reminds me of sort of old school Tiesto or something, you know, which I still like that kind of stuff, you know. But it's a good channel. But I was listening to that because I found a really good mix the night before, and I was re-listening to it, and I was looking at this image of the wolves, and you see there's like, they've got their eyes are closed, and if you look at the eye, there's like a nice sort of line, it's like a curve, and their mouth has a nice curve in it too. And I was just looking at it, and there was like these two curves. There was the curve of the eye and the curve of the mouth. And then like in between it, I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden I just get transported into this space, and it was just like, it was like the source. It was the source of all motherly love or something. And I'm shaking just thinking about it. It just transported me right into it. And I was like, what is this? And it was good because it was very loving and safe, you know. And then I just started seeing these like white flowers. Now the Uchu Sanango has white flowers. And then I started seeing these white flowers, and it's almost sensual. It's almost like they're not sexy. But it's sort of heading in that direction. There's sort of a sensuality to it, you know, just like the texture or whatever. And it's flowing over me, and the flowers, and it's just like, woof. And I'm like, what? And it was really, really intense. I would say it's equal to an ayahuasca ceremony. That's how intense it was, with 4 drops. Wow, I'm like hyperventilating here. And I go right into this space. And what can you say about it? It was just unbelievable. And it was the source of all. What it was like the source of love, of motherly love, but not just for humans, but for all animals. And there's this wave of love or vibration which goes through all of reality. And I got to the source of it for animals. So I'm hyperventilating big time here. For humans, for everything. And just amazing. And so as I'm looking at it, I smell the flowers, and I see Satya Sai Baba, who, and as you know from my earlier videos, is a guru, an Indian guru, who I met in various ayahuasca trips. I haven't seen him in a while, but he showed up yesterday, and he's got a different vibe than Jesus. You know, Jesus, when I've seen Jesus comes, it's like a shaft of forgiveness, you know? Like you just feel sin melting away, you know, it's like forgiveness. But with Sai Baba, it's also like this perfume of love. It's like sin didn't begin to exist yet, because it never existed. It was just all love all along. It was just like, where did it go to? So it was just amazing. Amazing. And this white flower, that was in my consciousness all day yesterday. So it was so intense that I had to leave the house, you know. I was like I was on my computer, and I had to turn the music off. And the moment I took the music off, it went down a bit, you know. I'm like, that's weird. So I put the headphones on again, and I went right back into the space. Took it off. I'm like, what is going on? That is weird, you know. So I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. So I'm going to go for a walk. So I'm walking along the canal here, and I can just feel this wave, this energy wave of love in everything. I just feel it in everything, you know, but especially in animals, because there's lots of animals around here. There's the cats, there's ducks, there's horses from time to time, goats, and this kind of stuff, you know. And all day long, and it was almost like this. It was like in the image, which I'll put on here. Actually, I'll imagine putting the image on here. In the original image, you can see these wolf and foxes and the woman, and they sort of layer over each other, just kind of like waves. They're kind of like waves of the ocean, you know. But they're being presented as animals, you know. They're animals, and but they're sort of visually similar to like waves rolling. And this idea of waves rolling was going through my head too at the same time. You know, it started off almost like flower blossoms blowing in the wind, and then later on in the day, it turned into these waves, rolling waves, and it kept coming back to this image. Everything kept coming back to this image. It was like the reference of the day. Like, so every time it would just bring me back to this image, and the image had so much embedded in it. I had to drive to work yesterday, and it was so intense. As I was driving to work, I was suddenly told, you know, take the scenic route past the beach. So I went down to the beach and sat looking at the waves for a while, and the whole thing just flowed together into this amazing. It's just amazing. It's just the most amazing thing that's ever happened. It's just amazing. Uchu fucking Sanango. What the hell? I'm like shaking still thinking about it. So it was just this wave of love going through everything, and it's so I went for my walk, you know, and it was all great, and I'm like, well, you know, I better get back, you know. So I got back to the house, and there was some, I'm trying to remember all the things that happened. A bunch of things happened. Another nice event happened while I remember is at one point, you know, my wife was in bed, you know. It was like 1 in the afternoon, but she was watching something on telly, so she was in her bed watching telly, and I was going in because I was looking for a sweater, and I was sort of looking around, and at the same time I'm having this flow of the wave, and it's psychedelic, but it's not like, it's just it was a whole different vibe. It was a whole different thing, whole different way of viewing reality. So I'm sort of at one end of the bed with my arms sort of over the bed like this, you know, and I'm like, I'm just letting my head down. I'm just like, you know, and she doesn't know I've taken it, you know, but I'm just looking, and I just look up at her. And we were talking about the other day, we're at our sister, on Halloween, we're at our sister-in-law's house, and we were joking around about not being romantic enough with each other, you know. And anyway, I'm looking at her from the other side of the bed, and she looks at me, and I look at her, and she looks at me, and I get up, I walk over to her, and I give her this kiss, and she's like, which is not something we do. She's not very romantic, you know. I try and be quite expressive with my emotions, but she's always like, yeah, you know. But so I give her this kiss, and she was like, oh. And then I went in and I hugged her, and I became one of the foxes in the image, and she was the woman in the image. And so I was with my eyes closed and my mouth lined up, and she was the woman. And it was like, what is going on? I just became the image. That image was guiding the whole day. So this went on and on. I mean, there was a whole bunch of stories I was hoping to remember to recount to you, but that's like the general vibe. It was just amazing. I've stopped hyperventilating, thank goodness. Now the funny thing is about this is that my old shaman Julian, I gave him half of my essences because he was interested in them, and he's done a bunch of them. I mentioned this in my last video, but he was saying the other day, he's like, oh, that's really weird. He's doing Uchu Sanango too. But the funny thing is, he was like, I don't know, it's got kind of witchy vibe to it. I'm like, what? It's not about witchy vibe. But it's interesting because I think it speaks to to our own vibrational input into the experience, you know. Now he's got a bit of trickster in him, Julian. So I mean, maybe he was on a bad vibrational moment or something to get that witchy vibe. Now the interesting thing is too, though, is he's really that guy's the king of dietas, you know. He does he'll do dieta because he's the king of Sharik Sanango, the king of Sharik Sanango. He's just he's really like the king of diet, of the dieta. So he does, like, when he does a dieta, he just eats one fruit and spirulina and nothing else, and no caffeine or booze or anything. So he always keeps his body clean. But even he was saying, oh, it was weird, the vibe. So he's doing Kambo today to try and like clean out any negative energies he's got and this kind of stuff. But truly amazing that, well, it's interesting too, because I was getting the witchy vibe from Sharik. Not always. I mean, for months and months, it was a great vibe I had from Sharik, but then later. So it's like some kind of thing we bring to the energy. Now, I've been on a pretty good diet for about a month now, and I've been running and various other things. And I started this diet, which Stefania recommended, which is no gluten, no dairy, which is having massive impact on my colon. It's really, 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 really helping. I mean, it sucks not eating dairy, but man, I guess I'm not going to be eating dairy anymore. I feel so much better. But I think that had a big impact on how I entered into the space. When I did Bob and Sana several months or a year ago, I guess, when I did Bob and Sana, I wasn't in a good mental space when it kicked in, Now, luckily, Bob and Sana is very forgiving, but, when it kicked in, it kind of kicked my ass for 5 minutes, like sort of punishing me for having my mind in a negative headspace, But what was good about this is that when it kicked in, I was looking at that image, which I love, I love that image. And then I was looking at those details and just really appreciating them. And the whole thing tied in too with my family and my kids, because, and this is one of the things that came through, it wasn't just motherly love, it was just love, and like, the way the kids are sleeping, the way that those wolves are sleeping in the image reminds me of my children, and I spend a lot of time on my kids, I dote on my kids. I shower those kids with love, from the morning, I wake my kids up singing to them every morning and at night and all through the day doing stupid jokes with them and the whole thing. And so in a way, it was almost like an appreciation for that. I guess it was almost like a recognition. It was a recognition that, hey, I'm part of this universal vibrational wave of love, and that's what I've tapped into, and it was really nice. Now, on a larger scale of things, I mean, that's really nice. The reason I'm trying to do these medicines again is because it's like as I said in a couple of videos back, I had this really negative vibration for the last few months. Everything's going wrong in my life. I get this pinched nerve now in my back. Just so many problems. It's ridiculous. So I'm trying to sort of change this negative vibration kind of a thing, which I've got going on. And so that's really great. So this is the thing. It's like, I'm thinking, okay, this is a great vibe, right? The whole love thing. And let me, just to be clear, this was an overwhelming wave of love. I mean, this was with me all day. It was like everything I looked at translated into this image or became part of the wave. And I had this sense of white flowers all day. Actually, last night, I was coming home from work last night at midnight because I had to lecture. But when I was coming home from work at midnight, it was like I had this flower petals in my consciousness. It was kind of overwhelming. I'm like, it's like, yeah, no more petals. I'm like, wow, I get the idea, the flowers. Apparently, Uchu Sanango, the flowers are so potent, the perfume of them, that if you take one flower, it can perfume like 100 square meters or something. It's that potent, the smell. And I'd say that potency, the ability to permeate space is not just in air, it's also in consciousness. It went through everything. It went through everything, Now, I was really lucky because, it's like, it was such a beautiful vibration. And, the only thing I'm on my negative vibe here thinking, well, imagine if it went negative. Imagine if you got a bad trip from that and it went to a bad place. Holy shit, you would not want to be doing that. Now, the funny thing is, speaking about going to negative places, like I said, I've been quite good in my diet, but yesterday I was good. I started the day just drinking cocoa, and I thought, okay, especially when I'm doing these plants, I'm like, I got to be strict because it's working out pretty well with the strict diet, So yesterday I was like, okay, I'm going to make some quinoa and have some vegetables, So I made some quinoa and I thought I'll just saute in some like peppers, not hot peppers, just regular green peppers and and some onions. So I did some olive oil, and I thought I'll put on some broccoli. So I steamed some broccoli and put that on. I'm like, this is great, you know. Now, I had read online before I took it about somebody who was saying that you shouldn't eat leafy vegetables or fruit with Uchu. It doesn't like the energy, you know. So I'm like, this seems okay. Now, the truth is, probably oil and salt, for strict diets, you shouldn't use those. But if you're doing like a dieta suave, or the urban diet, as Mimi calls it, you know, you don't want to do a strict diet, because the more strict your diet, the stronger the effects. So I figured I was okay. So I made my little quinoa. I went out onto the deck and I sat down and I'm eating it, and I pick up the broccoli on my fork and I'm putting it in my mouth, and as I look at it, it's like my mind zooms into it, and those little florets, those little flowers, my mind just says leafy vegetable, like what you're not supposed to eat. And I put it into my mouth. I had to run to the side of the deck and purged instantly. So I'm like, okay, Uchu Sanango, I guess you're pretty sensitive. I won't eat anything. I won't eat a thing, right? So I just packed up the plate. I had like one spoonful, put it in the fridge. Not going to eat anything, you know. So I had some, I didn't eat anything right there. It was just too intense. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not going to, you know. But I'm actually pleased that it did it, because, you know, with Sharik Sanango, I was drinking beer and eating sausages, and there was no warning. I mean, you shouldn't need a warning for something that fucking stupid, but, you know, it would have been nice to prevent me from the demonic influx that came afterwards. So what was nice about this was instantly, and it was just a piece of fucking broccoli, you know, instant feedback, like, don't do that. So I'm like, thank you. Anyway, I went down, I drove to work, and I was going, it was so funny when it was like, because, you know, it's sort of a pain in the ass to drive down by the beach. Usually it's much faster just going like overland, you know. And it just said to me, you know, it was putting this image in my mind of the waves, and it was like, you love that, you love this, the ocean, and I was like, fuck it, you know, I'll go by the ocean then, you know, it's like 30 minutes extra. And I went down, it was beautiful, you know, I love it down there. And this is in the area, it's called Concon in Viña del Mar in Chile. Really nice area. Kind of touristy these days with surf schools and this kind of stuff. The water's really cold, but it's pretty popular. And lots of restaurants, lots of seafood restaurants, and this kind of stuff. So just driving along there, just so nice. And I was just laughing. I was just laughing the whole way. Like, oh, how funny is this? You know, I'm following the suggestions of a plant, you know, from the Amazon jungle, which is trying to reconnect me with love, you know. So yeah, so I lost my train of thought 5 minutes ago. But I mean, this is the thing. It's like, you know, if you're on this train of love, that's great. But how does this translate into this idea that? How does that translate into the idea that I was talking about trying to reconnect with good luck and getting my life motivated, you know? So in some ways this ties in with, I get these emails from Paramahansa Nityananda, and all week he's been talking about like abundance for a couple of weeks. Abundance. And the whole idea, you know, what he's saying is the whole world is made up of traps to lead us away from what real abundance is, you know? Which is what we love, right? And so the idea, I mean, this is kind of a cliche too. I mean, it's easy to come up with this idea, is that when you do what you love, you can be abundant because you're completely invested in it, right? So I get that idea. I'm still trying to translate from the Uchu to, well, you know, this is the funny thing, because what I'm doing is I've got an outcome, I've got a preferred outcome, which I'm trying to fit the Uchu's message into, which is some kind of better luck, better financial luck, better luck with my health and this kind of stuff. And really, the message from Uchu is different. It's just saying it's love and focus on that. And that's very much the message of Ayahuasca too, you know. I remember at one point I was asking Ayahuasca, you know, how can I make myself better? You know, how can I better myself to be to be more, what's it, like a Tony Robbins stuff, be a more dynamic, productive personality. And it was like, the Ayahuasca said to me is like, don't do that. It was like, stop trying to be like that. It was like, it didn't say it like that. It just, what it said to me is it just showed me my inherent worth as I am now, right? So it didn't say don't be like this. It just said you're good. This is who you are. You're perfect as you are now. Stop trying to change the beauty that's already there. And this is exactly what the Uchu said yesterday to me too. It's like it's already in you. That's a quote from somewhere. It's already in you. So I didn't want to take Uchu today because it was so intense yesterday. It was very, very, it was beautiful. But like I said, it was getting into overload. But on the other hand, a lot of people on the reviews on the Sacred Tree Essences have said that the Uchu has given them insights to just some of these kind of questions that I've been having and realigning. So I did continue today, but low dose. I only took 1 drop, right? So just to remain connected, but and to get a slow influx of information and not like a big breakthrough like I had yesterday, because that was a breakthrough of momentous proportions. It was just, and it lasted all day, right? So that the breakthrough happened maybe about 10:30 in the morning, and at midnight last night, I still felt this intensity. I had beautiful dreams, not really influenced by the plant, but just very positive and loving. And I went to bed, and last night when I closed my eyes, I had visions of this girl with a sword. And it was like, it was poised to strike, and then she brought it down, whatever that means, but quite archetypal, symbolic kind of imagery. And